Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to Watches and Wonders. As usual, it is me, Tom, behind the camera. If you'd like to keep up with anything that we do, or shall I say that I do, outside of watches, please give us a follow on Instagram at watches_wonders and TikTok at watches and wonders. I post up videos of watches there, along with some bushcraft and a few other things that I like to get along with and get on with in my life. Occasional dog video. Gotta love our pooches. And yes, so welcome back to another, I want to say review. It is going to be kind of a review, but it's also going to be a comparison video. So in front of me right now, we have the Heimdallr, also known as Sharkey. What I call the Heimdallr Monster, also known as the Heimdallr HMSK01. Now that is not an attractive name personally, so I'm quite happy days to stick with the Heimdallr Sharkey Monster. Now, the watch in front of us is using, once again, another Seiko movement, but we are back to our automatics. It is using the Seiko NH36, which is very similar to the NH34 and NH35, except it has a day and date window. As usual, 21,600 beats per hour at 3 Hz. It has a 41-hour power reserve and a 24 joule movement. It is a hacking and hand winding movement, which is, I say, an upgrade, say, from some of the old Seiko movements. It has a case diameter. Now, I remember when I was growing up, the Seiko Monster was my dream watch. I was absolutely in love with the Generation 2 Seiko Monster in orange, and in the Frost Dial that they released a couple months later on as one of their limited editions. But they were popular and they sold out very, very quickly, and to find one on the second-hand market nowadays, you'll be looking anywhere between £700 and £1,000 for one in good condition. And that is not sort of money I just have kicking around to spend on a watch at the moment. Hopefully maybe one day if things go well, but currently, no. So I went for the Sharkey. And first impressions, I'm not disappointed. I'm really not. Now I have held a Generation 1 Seiko Monster orange in my hands, and the best thing I can say is this Sharkey is hands, feet, meters, miles above in quality. Now I don't know if that was just because of the orange Monster I had in hand had never really been looked after properly, but we don't know. That it is a watch I would like to get in my hands again and give it a clean through, give it a decent service, maybe even put a video out on me servicing that watch. If that is something you guys would be interested in, please let me know down in the comments. And before I get into this, something I do keep forgetting to state, just don't forget to like and subscribe if you are enjoying the videos that I release. The more we get, the better equipment we can get, and the more I'll be able to convince my missus this is the equipment that we need. But anyway, back onto the watch. So we have a case diameter of 42mm, a lug-to-lug of 47.8, and a thickness of 13.6mm. A bit of a chunky boy. It is using 316L stainless steel. We have some beautiful brushed and polished sections of this watch, which we will go through a little bit later on and I will show you. It is using a 20mm bracelet that tapers down to around 18mm, and then back up to 19 on the clasp, and then back up to 20 as it reaches the watch again. This is using C3 loom. You will have a beautiful loom shot at the end, along with a milled clasp, unidirectional bezel with a 120 click. Now, normally I will go through I'd show you all this and stuff like that, but I have a watch that I can compare this against, which I am going to bring in. It is a watch that I myself have really enjoyed now for a while, and there is also already a review up on this watch, but let's give them a comparison. And here we are. So next to us we have the Heimdallr AD 2047. Now, as I stated, there is a review up on my channel of this watch already. This watch has been to the woods with me a few times. It's been on my wrist quite a lot recently. It's, as far as I know, a little bit of a mixture between the Generation 1 and the Generation 2 monster. Whereas the one next to it, the Sharkey, is based from the Generation 2. Personally, my favourite, due to the teeth style loom that they have on this watch. I just think it is a little bit of perfection, personally. So, there is a bit of a price gap between these two watches, and I'm going to go through why I believe the price gap isn't actually that bad. So, the Heimdallr, you can pick up, especially on the sales on AliExpress, which happen every 5 minutes pretty much. You can pick one of these Heimdallrs up anywhere between £57 and £77. Whereas the Heimdallr floats around the £90 to £120. And that is with delivery, tax and everything else thrown in. So, let's actually start comparing these watches. The Heimdallr. Now, as you can see straight away, besides the obvious, different coloured on the dials. So the Heimdallr has what I like to call the wine dial. And I'm not talking about obviously your missus whining that you've got too many watches or anything like that. I mean the actual red wine. Now, when it comes to dials, I've got to admit, Heimdallr really knocked it out of the park. If you can see the texturing to that dial of the underwater, along with down at your 7 o'clock mark, you have a little diver. The dial of that watch is beautiful. I can't think of any other watch with a dial as pretty as that for the price that this watch is. Whereas the Sharkey has what I like to call the red wine dial. Sort of goes from a darker to a lighter red as you go into the dial. I've got to admit, Heimdallr, I wish you'd have matched that with the chapter ring. I really do. I'm not the biggest fan where the chapter ring becomes a different red completely to the dial, but at the same time, in my opinion, it is still a very, very beautiful watch. So, comparing these two, the case thickness of the Heimdallr is ever so slightly thicker than the Heimdallr by 0.2 millimeters, so it's not something that you will ever notice, personally. But the Heimdallr is heavier. So the Heimdallr comes in without any of the links removed at 194 grams, and the Heimdallr with none of the links removed at 187 grams. So once again, it's not something that you'll really notice, but it is a difference. When it comes to everything else on these watches, build quality, actual quality of the watch, the brushing on the links, it's pretty much exactly the same. I wouldn't be surprised if both of these watches came out the same factory. Now, that's not saying that they have, but I wouldn't be surprised. One of the main differences, though, that I find on this watch is actually the action of the crown. So the crown on the Heimdallr is thicker, and the grip is much, much better because you've got that thicker crown to it. Also, the edges, unlike the Heimdallr, are not that sharp. I don't have any problem gripping. I don't have any bite back when I do grip. I'm not constantly getting my tips of my fingers bitten, unlike a few of the other watches I have reviewed. Kind of design. Oh, we're falling over. This Shark is drunk. So, when it comes to these watches, I'm not going to say that there is one better than the other. It comes down to personal preference with a lot of them. Now, there are certain things I do prefer about the Heimdallr where you can see they have spread their money across a little bit better than what Adizdive have. And the main one there would have to be the clasp. So, with the Heimdallr, we get a beautiful milled clasp, whereas on the Adizdive it is just stamped. Screw down case back with the Heimdallr Sharkey logo on there. Now I've got to admit I'm a big fan of the Heimdallr logo. I really do just like the little shark. Big fan. And also on the clasp we can see we have the Heimdallr logo again. Now when it comes to the Adizdive, as I've shown in my previous review, now I do love this watch. It is one of my favourite watches. But we have an unstamped clasp and a pressed clasp. Now I understand these guys were working to a budget, a slightly smaller budget than what Heimdallr was. So if the clasp doesn't bother you, I would suggest going for the Adizdive. If that logo doesn't bother you, I'd suggest going for the Adizdive. The dial is, well, it's just fantastic. It genuinely is. That bezel action, not sure if you can hear that, but it's good, it's strong, there's hardly any play in it. And it lines up something that, well, it lines up when you actually line it up. That was my fault completely. Something though that some of these bigger watch companies at the moment are really struggling to be able to do. Can I line that up this time? Almost. Boom. There we go. And the same with the Heimdallr. Now the Heimdallr it's grippier. The clicks are more prominent. It feels much more sturdy when rotating the bezel. And it sounds more sturdy. Once again, no play at all on that unidirectional bezel. Sounds absolutely amazing, is the best way to describe it. Now I'm going to show you guys the looms on these watches, so give me a second and I'll be back with you. And welcome back, guys. So the Heimdallr is using C3 Super Luma Nova, whereas the Adizdive is using its BGW9, I believe. It is the BGW9, but it has a C3 pip, which isn't something that normally happens. I'd noticed with a lot of companies, they do like to try and match the loom to the pip. Now the colour has matched, but it is a C3 loom pip with a BGW9 loomed dial. Whereas the Sharkey uses C3 through and through. Now, I am a big fan of blue loom. I love BGW9. I think it's absolutely stunning. And the fact that they've managed to match that pip with that dial is fantastic. But for strength of loom, that Heimdallr is doing fantastic. That Heimdallr will last, and does last. I have tested this, it lasts all night. I can wake up sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning, look at my watch to see what time it is, and I can still see that time very strong. The pip, on the other hand, pip's not brilliant. I have seen people mod these pips and put their own loom onto them. I've seen people put their own multicoloured loom onto them, which looks absolutely awesome. Not my sort of thing, but I can completely understand why they do it. They do look awesome. Whereas the pip on the Adizdive is standing out strong. Still, very, very strong is that pip. But would I say it's worth the price difference in these watches. And personally, yes. I really do believe it is. For the price that you're paying for both of these, they both come with sapphire crystal. They both come with exceptional lume. Solid bracelets. Solid cases. But the Heimdallr, I don't know, it just feels more substantial. It really does. It feels slightly better put together. There's not as many sharp edges on it. There's not as many places that you can catch your fingers on it. It's a fantastic, fantastic watch. The main difference, though, I've found isn't in the clasps. It's what they use to hold together these bands. Now, the Heimdallr uses a pin and collar system, which if you've never used or changed a pin and collar system before, can be relatively annoying, as I found out the first time I ever did one. Whereas the Addis Dives uses the slightly cheaper split pins, but much easier to work with. It really does come down to, when it comes to these watches, personal preference. That is the best way I can describe it. It comes down to personal preference. Would I pay the extra for the Heimdallr? I would, yes. Does that mean you guys should? No, not at all. I believe you guys should go for whichever you find, number one, better for your price range, and number two, the one you prefer. Now, these reviews, I can give you information, but in the long run, when coming to comparing the watches, it's personal preference. So please, go with what you guys like the most. Other than that, removing the Addis Dive again. And warning, there is going to be a flash. Look at that lume though. Not even 2 seconds on there. Amazing. It really is worth the price. And when you can get them on the sales and you can get them below 90, there's not a watch out there personally that I think beats this. Not if you want an automatic, a good feeling automatic watch. I don't believe there is a better watch out here. I know a lot of people love San Martin, and San Martin is something that hopefully I will be getting a hands on at some point. But yeah, once I do, if I do get hold of a San Martin, I will have to compare, obviously, what I class as my favourite and best put together watch against what YouTube seems to find the best priced watches under £200. That is what everyone is stating, whereas I am now stating, if you can find them, this is, hands down, no competition, the best watch under £100. The best, hands down. And I'm comparing that watch against 30 plus that I have in my collection. For the price, it can't be beaten. But anyway, apologies. This video has gone on a little bit longer than I actually expected it to. I get a little bit carried away when it comes to any monster homage, any monster style watch. I sort of fall in love and I start to ramble. So I do apologise, but hopefully you guys haven't got bored and hopefully you have learnt something. I am still learning. Hopefully you guys are still learning. Anything you'd like to state, please drop us a message on either of my social medias or leave a comment underneath this video. I read all my comments and I respond to all of my comments, so please feel free. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and until next time, this is Tom with Watches and Wonders, and goodbye.